I mean, if you roll back to last year when we had the OpenAI drama, the board firing Sam Altman and then OpenAI adding 4 new members. And I think everyone so far has been just sort of interested in how OpenAI has evolved since then, in the sense that they have, even though they have added independent board members, Microsoft, and now Apple probably would have joined the board. It doesn't make sense. Like, when you have vested interests, in the case of Microsoft, they have a 49% stake in OpenAI. And they're the primary cloud provider for OpenAI. How can you do a good job of being an independent board member? And that's where, the regulatory scrutiny comes into play, because the regulators obviously are concerned about how Microsoft bought Inflection AI. Even though it wasn't an acquisition, they got all the employees of Inflection AI. So that's what it comes down to, the optics of it here.
Break down for me again what the relationship is now with OpenAI and Apple versus OpenAI and Microsoft.
So Microsoft has a 49% stake in OpenAI. They made a $10 billion investment. And so you could argue, if you're an investor in a company, you should get a board seat, as is Sequoia and some other private investors that OpenAI has. Apple, on the other hand, just partnered with OpenAI, which is going to be one of the providers of Gen AI model on their iOS and other devices. And so it's more of a customer-supplier relationship, if you want to call it that way, that Apple is using OpenAI as a supplier. Why were they getting a board seat? Well, you could argue they could be an independent board member, like Fujisimo is one of the board members for OpenAI. She's the CEO of Instacart. Now, I think that's where the fact that these technologies are so intertwined in terms of AI being deployed on Apple devices, you could argue the independence of the board comes into question. And given how important AI ethics and guardrails and all the things that regulators care about, that everyone cares about, frankly, I think the independence of the board was questionable, and these companies decided to proactively not join the board, which I think is good for optics.
So Microsoft is under scrutiny in Europe and by U.S. regulators into, I guess, their alleged dominance of AI. What's the view on the street about that risk to Microsoft and, I don't know, I guess at some point maybe Apple, I don't know, but certainly Microsoft?
I mean, the best way to look at it is these companies require a lot of compute for training their models, whether it's OpenAI, Anthropic, any of the independent Gen AI model providers, they need a lot of compute. Now, in the case of Microsoft, the arrangement is really, full of their interest, because OpenAI ends up using Microsoft compute for training their models.
All right, what does that mean? What is compute?
So think of all the NVIDIA GPUs that OpenAI needs, but it's deployed on Microsoft Cloud. So if I need compute to train the models, I'm not setting up my data center. Anthropic, OpenAI, they're not setting up data centers. They're using Microsoft data centers to get access to that compute. Wow. And that's where they could have gone to Amazon or Google to get that compute. The reason they're going to Microsoft is because of the stake they have and the board seat. And so if you are OpenAI and Microsoft is sitting in that board, are you really going to pick any of the alternative cloud providers for training your models?
No.
Probably not.
Do you feel like OpenAI will ever go public or be bought by Microsoft? Like, how does that situation play out?
I mean, everyone knows there are antitrust concerns around big tech buying any of these companies. So the acquisition is definitely out of the window. And that's why the way Microsoft got all the employees of Inflection AI, it was a pseudo acquisition.
Yeah,
you get all of the employees, you pay $600 million, and you're not calling it an acquisition. So in the case of OpenAI, obviously that's not going to happen, but Microsoft does have a 49% stake. Google bought DeepMind for $600 million. Now, they bought it, a few years back, but it just goes to show how these companies position themselves for the future, and they end up buying a lot of the startups. So I don't see an acquisition on the cards, but OpenAI is unique in the sense it's a nonprofit. And then they are looking to build a business out of it. So their structure was sort of very weird to begin with. And now they had that board trouble where it was a 3% board that fired their CEO. Now they're expanding with independent board members. So I don't think they've got it right still, but at least, not having Microsoft and Apple on the board is good in terms of optics. And that's what I can conclude here.
On surveillance earlier today, we had a London-based hedge fund, which I'd never heard of, Ruffer. They got about $38 billion in assets under management. They have a bearish call on the market. They think it's overheated, everything's overheated, blah, blah, blah. And that includes AI. Now they're saying they believe AI. Now, of course, they've been wrong by their own admission, and they've been trailing their peers because the markets have been going up. But the AI call was simply that, AI is transformative, blah, 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 blah. But we don't even know what the uses are. And we don't know all the money that's being invested in AI. Explain to me what the return on investment is on that. How do you answer that or deal with that?
I mean, we know some tangible use cases right now. One is from a developer co-pilot perspective, AI works. And this thing is getting deployed at every company. Developers are using Copilot. Same thing with customer service chatbots. This thing is productivity enhancing. And this is getting deployed. So I think it's hard to argue that there is no tangible use case. But look, the valuations have run up, and there will be a disconnect at some point where valuations are way ahead of reality. And that's where, as an investor, you got to pick your spots. I mean, a TSMC will continue to benefit, whether it's NVIDIA, whether it's Apple, or anyone else that needs the latest chips for AI, they will continue to benefit.